If we look carefully at the national income identity, we see that we can um, find in it the current account balance. How? Well, the national income identity tells us that income in a given country has to be equal to consumption, investment, government spending, plus exports minus imports of goods and services, and the net foreign asset position. So if we focus on the last three terms, we see that we have net imports and exports of goods and services and net foreign asset position. It happens to be true that the net foreign asset position is quite similar to the income receipts and payments that appear in the balance of payments, while the first part basically, so exports minus imports of goods and services, basically coincides with the balance on goods and services from the balance of payments. So if we exclude net unilateral transfers or gifts, then those two terms are basically equal to the current account balance. Now, there's one important distinction that we need to make. Usually when we think about national income, we think about GDP, so gross domestic product, which measures the income produced in a given country in a given period of time, independently of who is producing the income. All it matters is that this income is produced within the boundaries of a certain geographic unit, which is a country. This doesn't really fit with our logic of the balance of payments, which is focusing on transactions between residents and the rest of the world. In this case, then, we have to use a slightly different measure of income, which is gross national product, or GNP. Gross national product is thinking about total income produced by country residents or nationals, regardless of where they are. So think about a US engineer in the Middle East working for an oil company. He's producing or she's producing income abroad, and so it counts for GNP, but it doesn't count for GDP. Think about an engineer working for Google that is from Turkey. Being from Turkey, this person is not a US citizen, is not a US national, so the income produced by this person doesn't count for GNP, but it does count for GDP because this is income that is produced within the geographic unit of the United States. Great, so we use GNP, and with very simple manipulation of the national income identity, we can get that the current account balance is equal just to the difference between national income and something that I would call aggregate consumption, C plus I plus G. C is consumption by individuals. I is consumption by firms in a sense. Firms don't really consume goods, they rather make investments. Then we finally have consumption by the government. It's not going to be apples and pears, it's going to be bridges, it's going to be infrastructures, it's going to be paying pensions, and so on and so forth. So now the current account balance looks very much like a credit card account or a bank account. If income in a given year is greater than all the expenditures that a nation have, then the current account balance is going to be positive. If income is lower than all the expenditures, whether they're done by consumers, by the government, or by the firms, if this income is lower than all this expenditure, then the current account balance is negative. So in a sense, the country is putting the bill on a credit card if Y is less than C plus I plus G, or it's accumulating assets in the opposite case. So think about it. We said that when the current account balance is negative, the financial wealth position of one country with the rest of the world has to deteriorate. This makes sense. So if the current account balance is negative, it means that we're consuming more than our income. And so then it means that some foreigner has to lend us money, in a sense, or buy financial assets in our country in order to make up for this imbalance. If the current account balance of a country is positive, then we have kind of an excess of resources, of financial resources in the country, because we had more credits than debits, we had more transactions that brought money in than money out. And so what are we going to do with this excess of money? We're going to invest in the rest of the world, which means that our financial wealth position with the rest of the world is going to improve. So we've just analyzed how we can get a relationship between the current account balance and the national income identity, and we've made a simple metaphor that summarizes that not really summarizes, that compares the situation or the budget of a family with the current account balance, which is kind of like the budget of the aggregate economy. And we have seen that in terms of simple logic, there's not a lot of difference between a simple economic unit like a family and a complex and large economic unit like an entire country.